You know, it doesn't matter how long I've been doing videos for, this is still taking me more than a dozen tries to get this intro right. Hey guys, this is GamerCal, welcome to another Pokemon Trading Card Game discussion video. This time, we're going to be going over what is going to be our first rotation in the history of the game. So, yeah, there are two modified formats in the Wizards of the Coast era, and after Neo Discovery, like after our games on Saturday, we are going to be entering the first of those rotations, and a fair few of the cards will never be playable again. Some of them do come back in, different forms later on, but for the most part, yeah, this is it. We're going to be saying goodbye to some of these cards, and it's an exciting time, to be honest. I didn't think we'd actually make it to this, to be real. I thought people would have gotten bored of this by now in terms of the player base like we've got, but obviously not. So, our rotation will go... We're on Neo Discovery at the moment. This first rotation encompasses the next 3 sets. So, Neo Revelation, Neo Destiny, and the Legendary Collection. The Legendary Collection complicates things a little bit, but we'll get to that as we go. So what is actually rotating? Well, everything from the base set, the jungle set, and the fossil set will rotate. The rotation itself is rocket on, so that includes base set 2. So stuff that was reprinted in there, such as energy removal, does not get saved by the fact if it was in the base 2 expansion, because that also goes. So that is going to drastically change a lot of stuff here. A lot of these Pokemon have either been power crept or have kind of just fallen out of favor as we've gone on, but some of them are incredibly prevalent still, like the Blastoise from the weekend here is still extremely good, and there's a lot of the trainers especially are going to be pretty big hits to lose here. So yeah, let's just take a quick look at that to see the major stuff which we're losing here, because it's all fine and well just looking at a whole bunch of cards going, oh, I can't believe we're losing Kingler here, like, truly we are at a loss for words. Like this, the Vileplume or something, or the Victory Bell is like, oh, I can't believe we're losing those, it's going to be terrible. But no, let's actually take a look at the impactful stuff. And I've split it into 3 categories here. There is the category of it will not be coming back for either for a very long time or just never. There's the category of it will come back but not during this expansion, or at the very least it will come back in a slightly different form after the rotation. After the next rotation, this will be available in some form. And then there's the cards that do go away but come back in Legendary Collection. So let's go over the ones that will never come back first. I'll probably talk about Legendary Collection as its own thing in a sec, but for now, the ones that will never come back. Blastoise. This thing does technically come back in a few formats, but it never comes back in this exact form. And we will never get this Blastoise back. So the fact of, say, Matt has got 3 of them, I think Kib has got 2, that doesn't matter. They will never be usable again. So we'll never have to see that. Clefable won't ever come back, at least in this form. I do believe there is a Clefable EX that has the Metronome type attack, but it doesn't come back as a 1 energy single price thing, right? So this is it. If we're going to play Clefable, it's got to be this weekend, and that's it. Wigglytuff doesn't come back. This attack comes back in several different forms as we go through the years, but it even won Worlds actually with Ordino, although that was on the regular EX. The Mega was the actual, attacker, but Duda Wave was technically on a Worlds winning deck even later on, so there you go. But the Wigglytuff itself never gets a reprint, so we're not actually going to be able to play that anymore. The Machamp seems like a weird one to include here, but the Machamp actually does get reprinted, and Light Machamp that's in Neo Destiny is pretty good. There's a Machamp in the rotation after this that's also pretty good, and this guy is just powerful, right? This alongside Hitmonchan was one of the reasons why fighting was really good to begin with and why you needed to have a lot of fighting resistances, and we just lose both of them. This Hitmonchan technically gets a reprint in Gen 4, but never actually like comes back at any point that it'd be relevant, so there's that. Electrode, probably one of the biggest losses here. Electrode historically has a lot of these sorts of things where you KO itself and you get a bunch of energy in play, but this exact one where it provides a double colored energy like on an attachment, that doesn't come back. So we're gonna have to look elsewhere. We're gonna have to get new Electrodes when they come out. Chansey would actually be pretty relevant because there's a Blissey in the set right after where we are just now, like in Neo Revelation. That Blissey is actually pretty good, but this Chansey doesn't ever come back. So you have to use the newer Chanseys that actually work on the fact that they evolve and therefore are nowhere near as good as this one. So yeah, fortunate for that. Kangaskhan largely got power crept by Cleffa, but even then Kangaskhan is still just a solid card, right? Massive HP, any energy recycles pretty good for this, just draw a card. Really, really good stuff, so bit of a shame about that. Mr. Mime never ever comes back in this form. I believe the invisible wall type thing ends up being an odd/even defense thing with the EX version, but it never actually comes back where you have... I don't think any ability has ever been this powerful, as far as, like, you can only take a max of 20 damage. So, yeah, we never ever see that again. Cipher and Electabuzz technically both get reprints later on in Gen 4, but that's so far away, and they never come back in this form. Electabuzz doesn't evolve until Gen 4, so it still sees... you know, like regular tier like power cards and whatnot, but Cipher now has an evolution, so it should never be this powerful again. There's a promo Cipher that's pretty good, but not really relevant here. This Magmar largely didn't see, like, we didn't see a ton of play off of this thing because we didn't really want to play Stole that much. I know Matt played this with the Wigglytuff deck, and it was obviously pretty good there. It was a meta call at the time. It's been power crept because babies are pretty resistant to this sort of thing, but it's still respectable enough. Like, it's worth mentioning because it was a good card for the for historic reasons. Ditto never comes back in this form. There's never been another shapeshift style thing with this. Ditto obviously comes back in many different times and does many different copy-based powers, but it never outright duplicates the opponent's active again, I don't think. So that's kind of a thing. Aerodactyl, I don't believe comes back until Archeops in Gen 5. There maybe are some Gen 3, Gen 4 stuff that prevents evolutions a bit as well, but nothing quite like this. So this one, I mean, there's fossil support in the set that we've just drafted, so you might see this at the weekend. But after that, no more evolution denying, and that's a really good thing for the format because it promotes actually using evolutions. So happy enough to see that. The Dragonite, this ability comes back a few times over the years, but probably not for quite a while. And this one just doesn't come back ever. This, on the Dragonite at least, I don't believe it ever comes back. Bustin is the closest that you get for it on Dragonite EX. That's not quite the same though, because that's a one-time thing. It's no Keldeo like this thing is. So yeah, this Dragonite didn't get to see a ton of play because it was always threatened by ability denial or just like being too slow to come in. But Sai was trying it with Dark Vileplume and it was pretty interesting, so not too bad. And then all the trainer cards down here. Computer Search and Item Finder technically come back as A-Specs, Item Finder being Dowser Machine at that point, but they are incompatible with the ones that we have here because they have a new ruling on them and whatnot. So, and Dowser Machine is technically a different name in English, so you know, whatever. Yeah, these cards never actually come back. Computer Search, I think especially, is one that shouldn't really come back in this form. I think it comes back as a supporter in like one of Red's cards or something in Gen 7. Don't remember entirely. I'm pretty sure it did, and it never really saw play because as a supporter it's not strong enough. But yeah, no, Computer Search doesn't ever come back, so we're gonna have to actually play some more targeted search cards as we go. Defender and Plus Power do make their reappearance in Gen 4, I believe. Plus Power does in Gen 5 too, but they're slightly different, and that's a very long time away. These are effectively gone for the foreseeable future. They get, like, retrains, I believe, like Strength Charm and Buffer Piece, I think they are, where they are one-turn, like, Pokemon tools, but being Pokemon tools, you cannot stack the plus power, and you also can't attach, like, a Goldberry or something, so they are definitely a lot weaker in that state. Still good, but not as oppressive. Energy removal and super energy removal. Good freaking riddance. These cards never should have been printed in this form. We don't get anything to replace them this format. Energy removal 2 comes in the next rotation. So, yeah, good riddance. These cards should never have been printed. Imposter Oak is a weird one. Like, this isn't that amazing outside of the meme Moltres deck, but and not Moltres Tickling Machine, but it is technically a funny card that you could play in that deck, and it wouldn't actually be the worst thing ever. So, I don't know. I think it's an intriguing card. I didn't say it's actually good, but it also never gets a reprint, so there's that. Last, good riddance to this as well. I think Getsis is the closest we ever see to this again, but we still have Rocket Sneak Attack, and we still got Noctowl, but Last thankfully never comes back, so good job on that one. Pokemon Flute takes a long time to be reprinted. I know this comes back as Target Whistle, and nowadays Echoing Horn, I believe, is the card in Gen 8 that does this, but it doesn't come back for quite a long time, and this would have actually been pretty good with the baby Pokemon being around at the moment. If you could pick them off with, like, Mewtwo's Telekinesis or something, this is a really cool card to have, but we just don't quite have strong enough bench damage, I think, for that right now. Like, Tyranitar, you could argue, could use it, but other than that, yeah, not really much to do. Professor Oak is obviously a huge one here. This never comes back in this form, but we do see it in several formats, specifically Gen 5, 6, and 8, see this card come back as basically professors in those games as well, but it's as a supporter, so it is a 1 per turn at that point. It's not the same, you can draw 28 cards just by playing 4 Oak sort of thing, so that's fine. And then Revive, I don't actually know if this one's that impactful, but honestly, Revive was probably slightly underplayed here. Mostly because Jason didn't play it in any of his decks, and a lot of people have just been copying him. But, you know, whatever. This card's actually not awful. It isn't as good as the Gen 5 version. The Gen 5 version will probably see a little bit of play here and there. But this one does make you take some damage as well. If you can heal that damage, though, or if that damage really doesn't matter very much, then, yeah, it's pretty solid. So, yeah, just not being able to get the Pokemon back as easily. Max Revive is still a thing, but Max Revive discards 2 energy. Not a lot of decks can facilitate that, so yeah, I think Revive is a kind of important one. And then the huge one, Double Colorless Energy. They do print several, like, versions of DCE as we go through, but they're all nerfed in some way. Double Colorless itself does not come back until Heart Gold Soul Silver. And yeah, there's going to be a lot of Pokemon that would have been like, this would be great if we had DCE, because we could attack with it quickly. Doesn't happen. So this is a huge hit. So many cards, even just now, like, I know we're just looking at the rotating ones, but like the Wigglytuff, obviously, the Cipher, these were staples because of Double Colorless. If we look to stuff just now, like Houndoom is a potential DCE attacker that would have been good. The Politoed in the set that we've got here is Double Water, Double Colorless. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's going to miss this not being in play. Even Charizard would like it because of Energy Burn, so there is that. The cards which are not available in this format but do get a retrain or just a straight up reprint in the following format. The main one is Switch. Switch is debatably legal in this format because there was the Tropical Battle like Mega Half decks that came out for effectively the World Championship, and you could argue that makes Switch legal, but I've looked at those cards and they just look fake. I'll be honest. I know they're not, but the way that they are presented in this this setup. I mean, I could go and look at, get them out, I guess. Let's go ahead and do that because we've got them here. But if we actually take a look at them, even just like zoom in on one, they don't look real. Like, not the artwork and stuff. The artwork I know is fine, but the actual text and stuff just doesn't look real on these things. And there's actually a mistake in one of the resistances as well. Because, of course, it was Wizards of the Coast. Why would there not be? But yeah, they're hard to read any of the effects they have. They're not very good cards anyway, but Switch technically did reprint in here. But we're not going to play it because the actual, like, cards themselves just kind of sucked, to be honest. Yeah, so there's that. Super Potion doesn't come back in this format, but does technically... doesn't quite get a full reprint. It gets a retrain as Hyper Potion in the E series, and that will help, but it's not actually, like, nearly as good. But still, this is a card that was potentially impactful because of Recycle Energy that we can no longer play. Like, you use this alongside Goldberry, because Goldberry's a delayed heal. And then we've kind of got to talk about the Legendary Collection stuff. So, the Legendary Collection itself is a reprint set that's going to be at the end of this format, and it reprinted some of the good cards from the first 4 sets of the game, so base set through Rocket, but they deliberately didn't reprint a lot of the most broken cards of the format. So there's no Oak in here, there's no Comp Search, there's no Energy Removal, etc. There's no regular Blastoise either, they subbed it with a Dark Blastoise. So, this, the only change here is that the Pokemon with abilities, or the Pokemon powers, do state that they don't work if affected by any special condition. That is a universal change that comes in with this rotation as well. So that doesn't fundamentally change the card. It is still exactly the same thing, so we will be able to use our old cards here. We'll probably just want to update them to be these text here, because it's the same thing. So, with that in mind, there are about 100 cards, I think, in this set, or somewhere close to that. And, like, some of them are from Rocket, but most of them are older stuff. So that means that we actually have a few... I forgot to include Snorlax in here, actually. Yeah, I probably should have done that too. Whatever. We actually have a few cards here that are still kind of relevant that will not be legal until the end of the format. So we have Venusaur. I mean, this card has been on the back burner in every single format so far. Most of the reason I've not ended up playing it is just because it's been a little bit too hard to set up, and now I have more fun tools that I want to play. But like, Venusaur is stupid good, definitely would look at it. Arcanine is interesting because Typhlosion could actually use this card. Because it can fire recharge, right? You can fuel the flamethrower a bit. It's a big Pokemon, so it definitely helps out in that sort of aspect. And I don't have Blaine's Arcanine, at least I only have one Blaine's Arcanine, so I can't exactly play that, unfortunately. But this guy is still pretty good too. It's going to be missed a little. I think Venusaur decks would actually potentially use this to out the Steel types, because it can actually use Rainbow Energy. So yeah, that's a thing. Alakazam, another one of those that's just very hard to set up, but once it does, it's very, very difficult to stop for most decks. So this is easily one of the better cards that we are going to miss for a little bit. Muck, unfortunately, comes back. I do not understand why. Like, this was one card they should have left alone, but they didn't. So, I mean, we have Magby, we have Pichu, and we have Igglybuff as, like, I wouldn't say better versions, but more balanced versions of this. So why did we need this back? I don't know, but it's in the set, so it's there. The entire Fossil Gengar line is there, and this is probably relevant because baby Pokemon are, like, super easy to curse KO. So this is definitely something to keep an eye on. With evolutions being a little bit easier to play at that stage, it's definitely possible that we could evolve through that. Hypno, you could argue that Xatu is better than Hypno, but the Drowsy is much, much better than Natu, so I still think Hypno is a pretty good one to come back. The Prophecy attack is just really good for controlling what the opponent has. You just need to... I mean, it's weaker with Cleffer in the format, so you gotta try and make sure that they don't get too many Eeks off. But if you could just control what they're drawing, then you're probably going to be in a very favorable spot. Hitmonlee comes back. It's the only one of the pair that does, and it's still somewhat relevant because 50 damage is still respectably high for its cost, and Stretch Kick is okay too. So I think it's fine. One Retreat's nice too. The Moltres, all three of the legendary birds do get a reprint. The Articuno from Fossil comes back, but without Blastoise it's not nearly as good. The Zapdos comes back, but without Electrode it's not nearly as good, so I didn't really include those. But the Moltres itself has the advantage of being charged up by Typhlosion, and that means that Wildfire could actually work really, really well. So I actually think this is a pretty good pick for that format too. And then obviously we see the Snorlax too. I forgot to include this, so it's fine. We'll talk about it now. Snorlax is still good with Dark Vileplume. It's less good because Double Colorless rotates, but it still has like recycle energy and stuff that it could use. And yeah, it just takes an extra couple of turns, well, 1 or 2 turns to charge. Whatever, you know, still really good with Dark Gloom into the Vileplume, so I include it there. And then the trainers that come back, Bill actually does make a resurgence, unlike Professor Oak, so we'll probably be jamming this again in decks. Hasn't seen play for a while because we've just had more powerful draw stuff, but when we lack some of those, it'll be good. Energy Retrieval comes back. I don't know if this is actually good or not because Nightly Garbage Run has generally eclipsed it, but I believe Garbage Run actually rotates the set after this comes out, so maybe Energy Retrieval will be playable again. Mysterious Fossil comes back in, so you'll be able to play the Discovery Fossils a lot better. Pokemon Breeder and Trader both come back in. This is very important to have around. Breeder is just a prototype rare candy at the moment. We don't have candy, so yeah, until Gen 3 this is what we would have. So another chance to get these is pretty good. And then Scoop Up comes back as well. This is, I think, the last time we see regular Scoop Up, but sometimes Scoop Up is just better than the alternative, because Super Scoop Up is on a coin flip, whereas this one, it's just get the basic back, and that can often be enough. So yeah, you may have noticed when I was looking at the base set here, there is one card I flipped over. That is Pokemon Center, because Pokemon Center actually doesn't rotate, because as soon as rotation happens, we get this promo version of Pokemon Center, which makes it stay in format. So Pokemon Center is legal despite being a base set card. It's the only base set card that has a reprint. I think all the rest of these don't have anything that way. Energy Search was like retooled as Energy Arc for this format. I think Search comes back in Expedition, so that comes back later on. If you want to see what the actual, like, all the cards are, here's effectively your screenshot. These are all the cards which will be coming back in Legendary Collection. So there's a couple of interesting ones in here. Otherwise, the stuff like the Golduck is weird to come back, but you know, Energy Denial stuff could be fine. The Nidos was something I think that Pepper was looking at, because Boyfriends is just a pretty strong attack. Also a really funny one, right? But like, yeah, with evolutions being a bit easier to play at that stage, you'd probably be able to get a decent amount of damage off of that. Machamp is an interesting one to come back, because it was originally a promo, so actually being able to pull hard copies of this card is kind of neat, even if it's a little bit like outclassed by that point. Strikes Back is still an interesting attack, so there's that. And then otherwise, there's a couple of the evolutions that come back. I don't know why Dark Vaporeon was chosen instead of the regular one, but whatever. These could be useful with the Energy Evolution Eevee, so there is that. And I think Golem is the only other interesting one, just because the next set, Neo Revelation, has Geodude and Graveler, but it doesn't have Golem, unless I just really am misremembering the set. So this is actually the only playable Golem, and we don't get it until the end of the format. It's so weird. I don't know what's up with that, but hey. Yeah, that's pretty much about it though. There's some fun stuff that comes back, but for the most part, it is all gone from there. So there's a lot that we will have to change about our decks, and that is the whole point of rotation. And it's exciting. I don't know. I just wanted to make this so we could show exactly what we are losing. I'm probably going to do this for every rotation, to be honest. I'll showcase what we're losing and how like impactful that will most likely be. So look forward to that, I guess, when we're done with Legendary Collection and we can actually go ahead and discuss that too. Because all of these, like all the Rocket cards which aren't in here, get rotated too. It's kinda weird. Alright, anyway, thank you for watching. Hopefully you have enjoyed yourselves and learned something about the format here. It's gonna be brand new experience without energy removal. Yay! I'm actually excited for that. So yeah, gonna be a new experience, but we've got to get through this one last set first. We're gonna see some pretty crazy stuff come out this week, I think. Because also Sneasel is getting banned as well as we play this. We've worked out now enough people have got like so many of them and a maxed out like dark energy count. The Sneasel's probably going to take over the format if we don't ban it. It was historically banned after energy removal went, and so we're going to follow that. So no Sneasel either. None of this do the wave shenanigans coming back in as a beat up card. So should be good. Alright, that's going to be it. Like I was saying, hopefully you enjoyed yourselves and learned some stuff here. And yeah, looking forward to seeing how this is going to change everything. Alright, take care everyone.